I don't see it in StreamYard.
That was the first thing said on the show, dear.
Okay.
All right, so, hello, puppies and kittens. I'm talking with a Texas business owner, lives in a small town in a very red town in a very red state. And I went, Colt, you own a brewery, Edgewise 8. And I was there some weeks ago with some of my boas, and we were just, we were having out there in Weatherford. And I remember we were having a nice little political discussion, and you were talking about how both you and Erin were talking about how difficult it is to even express yourselves politically in the very red kind of environment you're in. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, well, I can tell you a couple stories because, I'm in bars and cigar lounges and whatnot a lot. And everyone, that's kind of public areas where people are talking, even if you're not necessarily friends, they're talking to each other. And everyone seems to always think that they agree with, or that you agree with them. And that's almost never the case for me. Although I have met quite a few people who I was surprised by being more left leaning. But like, for example, the other day, this guy was talking about, it's like, he was comparing the Democratic platform to the Nazis, and he was just going off on this. And I was like, I always have to kind of temper this because I'm surrounded. But I was like, oh, really? Well, that Trump is regularly quoting Hitler now, right? And that they're using a lot of Nazi rhetoric, and that Nazis support him. And
let's not forget all of the trucks, right? All the 1-ton diesel or dually crew cabs that have the Trump flag, the American flag, the Dixie flag, and the Nazi swastika flag all in the back of their truck all at the same time.
I fortunately haven't seen the swastika anywhere in person, but I have definitely seen pictures. But he was just flabbergasted by the fact. It's like, no, seriously, like whenever he says, let's, they're poisoning the blood of our country. I'm like, that's Hitler, dude. Like, you're literally doing that. And then later, this guy is a minister, and he was saying, can you believe that they threw people out of one of Kamala's rallies because they were saying Jesus is Lord? And I was like, I remember reading that, and I don't remember that being what was said that got them thrown out. And so I looked it up, and I was like, okay, so that's what they were saying after they got thrown out, as they were being escorted out. But that's not what they were saying that got them thrown out. And also, that's a Nazi dog whistle now, right? And again, he was just floored. I'm like, these aren't, in my opinion, like unknown things. But people just do not get out of their sphere in this climate. It's really odd.
We heard of that rally, wherever the hell it was, that Madison Square Garden, where they did a simulated Nazi rally. And one of the speakers there was talking about Democrats and says that they're all a bunch of degenerates, every one of them, Jew-hating degenerates. I have to vote Democrat. I ran as a Democrat. I guess I'm technically a Democrat. I don't hate Jews. I don't consider myself a degenerate. But I would get the impression. I mean, if somebody conservative would probably look at me as just anybody that's not conservative. I guess the only other category is degenerate, since they put themselves as holier than thou.
I hate to interrupt, but as a Jew, I'm very glad to hear that you're not a Jew hater. Very pleased.
Yeah, so it was funny that they do this rally where they say that the Democrats are the Jew haters, but then they're also telling all these racist jokes the whole rest of the rally.
Yep, they just take things out of the Nazi playbook. Even they're eating the dogs, that whole thing, and that's not exactly. I don't think it originated with them, but they certainly use that kind of rhetoric. It's amazing how just in their own little chamber they are. I don't understand it, and it's hard. I try to be nice whenever I'm talking to these people, and whenever I am like kind of being semi-confrontational, but it never lands well, no matter how nice and how gentle I am with them. Bunch of snowflakes.
Well, let's hear about that if you don't mind. And Erin, please jump in. The moment you have something to say. The same goes for my wife Lilandra. I know that she has a bunch of stories about what it's like to live in Texas, as as an atheist in Texas, as a non-white, non-Christian, whatever, she's got plenty of stories on that and should probably chime in with those. But I want to hear from you all on this. Tell me what it's like to run a business in a place like Weatherford, Which, by the way, before we went live, Colt was telling me, well, it's not a small town; it's got 50,000 people in it, and he's right next to Fort Worth, which is part of the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. So it's just a massive, massive fucking city, and then you got Weatherford, 50,000 people.
Right. Okay. Well, comparatively, where I grew up is so small that we literally don't even have an official town. So Weatherford is huge for me. Okay. So, I see it. I get it.
It's twice the size it was when I was in high school. So, Yeah. And my county is the last time I checked, the 6th fastest growing county in Texas. Mm-hmm. And it's a bunch of Californians coming here, and everyone here hates it, they all hate it. I'm like, no, I've met these Californians. They're all very right-wing people who are leaving a blue state to come to a red state that happens to be a lot cheaper.
Right. There's another thing I don't get. I lived in California. I grew up in California. And, one might say that that's how I turned out the way I did. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I was taught to respect human rights. I was my mother was a Mormon, and she was telling me about the Mormon prophecies, and one of the prophecies of the end times was that the Constitution would be hanging by a thread.
Oh yeah,
threatened by the Antichrist. My mom had described Trump so many times to me without knowing that she was.
Yeah, the guy who wants to terminate the Constitution. That guy.
Exactly.
Speaking of Weatherford and Nazis, I was just reading about, because I remembered something happened there. It was in 2020. There was a violent retaliation to a anti-racism protest.
Yeah, we have a statue on the courthouse lawn that commemorates Confederate soldiers, and certain parts of the population wanted it removed. And the county, I guess the council, came out and said, "Oh no, this is commemorating all the soldiers." I'm like, "Well, no, it literally says the Confederate States of America on the plaque, so I don't think you're right there." But yeah, there were several people arrested for pointing, rifles at other people and stuff. I don't think any actual violence happened, but it seemed imminent a little bit.
I'm reading here that they of course they started yelling at the protesters. There's like 50 protesters of this statue, and they're like, "All lives matter, of course," and BLM is Antifa. You need to go back with George Soros, and yelling the N word. They said that they had Confederate flags, Nazi flags, and then this is one of the protesters, the organizer who said this, and they're calling me the N word, but then they're calling them the hate group, and it says that it did get violent. They began to throw water bottles, push people, punch men and women, brandish knives, threaten to shoot people. And there, like you said, there was one truck that had a rifle aimed at the protest.
And that guy was arrested, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. And even more recently, there is a small, we actually don't know how large, but there is a group of people that have visited different neighborhoods in the dead of night to throw Nazi propaganda at the doors. As a matter of fact, I think, Colt, your neighborhood was hit, right?
Yeah, I got one.
Right.
It was basically all these politicians are Jews, and they want to, I don't remember the exact thing, but the key point for me was that it was in a plastic bag full of fire pellets. Mm-hmm. Which, that's not suggestive at all. And it was all about all these Jewish politicians need to go. And, not that there were any ovens or anything involved in any Nazi-related stuff.
No.
Yeah, which reminds me of another thing we commonly hear politically is when people tell me that they can't vote for Kamala because she supports the genocide, where she said in Michigan that she's going to do everything in her power to end that war. What Trump said was that Netanyahu should finish the job.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And they,
oh, go ahead.
but
So you're not going to vote for Kamala because she supports the thing that Trump supports. So you're going to vote for Trump because he's going to do it worse. She's going to try to stop it, and he's going to keep it going until Palestine is extinct. That's
it makes a lot of
apparently
sense.
the logic behind these votes.
Yeah.
I think most of them are probably at least saying that they're not going to vote. I don't think they're going to vote for Trump, but I think most of them are saying, which is, I mean, Texas isn't that far away from at least being purple.
This is statistically, if you look at the voters, the number of registered voters and the way that we show up to vote, the problem is not in the way that Texans vote, is in the lack of attendance, right? It is in the lack of voter turnout that really makes us a red state more than anything.
We're gerrymandered to death,
Yes.
and they don't have many voting places.
Mm-hmm.
And that wouldn't stop us from voting out Governor Greg Abbott in some of the statewide races and electing Congress people to Congress if we all voted as a state, if there was better turnout.
Right.
Like the gerrymandered places would do affect the House of Representatives and our Texas legislature, but we could still pick our governor and lieutenant governor, and we could still pick our senators.
Yeah.
And
I'm so
Right.
frustrated because when it came to picking our governor, before we got Governor Hot Wheels, my wife and I were with Wendy Davis
Mm-hmm.
when she had to give her concession speech. Not only did we support her and vote for her and canvass for her,
Mm-hmm.
we also interviewed her on my channel. I thought she was a heroic figure.
As
And I mean, Wendy Davis is just fucking amazing. And how do we get Greg Abbott?
I don't know.
I don't.
He's one of
how
those.
these people can be as villainous as they are and not realize what villains they are.
Him, Paxton, and Cruz are the three people I do not understand. Like, run someone better on your side. Like, I would think that the Republicans would vote them out.
Cruz
Right, maybe not Abbott, but
Cruz is up to be voted on tomorrow. I'd love to see the last of Ted Cruz.
My
Agreed.
wife and I followed Wendy Davis's ordeal. When she got famous, that was one of the most involved moments on the internet that I can remember, because somebody just had like live feeds linking all these links to this one camera in the state capitol, and it was pandemonium. It was awesome. It was so much drama to see this thing going on.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe we can find a link and I can put it in the description later, because I don't know how to describe it to anybody that's watching now that wasn't in Texas at that time. But I had a problem with Rick Perry, our previous governor, because just everything he did was villainous and stupid. One of the very first things he did was to pollute public, to write legislation to pollute public aquifers.
Mm-hmm.
And he would also do this thing where if your company made $100,000 donation to his campaign, then your company would receive legislation benefiting it within 30 days, over and over again.
Rick Perry was quite an interesting figure.
And he also executed more people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it was twice as many as the next most lethal state.
Yep.
While he was governor. And one of them was somebody that the courts had exonerated. And he was still refusing to pardon.
Well, I believe it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Trump did his famous, Central Park 5 thing where he called for their execution after they were exonerated. Like, they don't care.
No, and for the party that, aggressively says that they are pro-life, I think it's fascinating that we, especially statistically, when you look at, things like the death penalty and things like that, number one, it's not fiscally responsible to keep it at all, which, of course, the Republican Party claims fiscal responsibility. And number two, how pro-life is it to condemn someone to death without being able to say, without a single solitary doubt that they deserve that? I don't know about you guys, but I am not comfortable saying that someone deserves death, even if I see it with my own eyes. That's not a call I'm willing to make.
I gave a speech on this a few months ago where I talked about how for most people are religious believers. They are not like me. They don't think that death is the end. They think that their God has already forgiven them, and that their way to get out of prison is to die and go sit with God on his right hand because he's already forgiven them.
Mm-hmm.
I have not.
So they're
heard
going
that
to
justification.
receive great power once the system kills them. I got to read a couple of comments in here. Tim Needham says, "What businesses do they have in Weatherford? I missed that, and I live close to there. I'd like to give them some business if I can."
Well, you can't right now, unfortunately. It was a brewery down on North Main. We had to shut down because of leasing problems, but hopefully within a year or two, we'll be back open with a new building and whatnot.
Oh, I didn't know it was going to take that long.
Well, we got to build, so I really don't know. We haven't even started that process, so we'll be down for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next
There's some
comment
beer out about, but
says, "Is Texas still Texas if it doesn't look, act, or sound like Texas? Are Texans trying to make New York more Texan?" I don't understand that question at all.
I think they mean that Texas wouldn't be Texas if it didn't sound more conservative, because you're talking about being progressive in Texas.
dude,
That's what the title is.
I know people who are just Texas as fuck, and also like straight up socialist.
Right. Right.
That you would never, ever, ever know it about it just from meeting them and talking to them, but they're kind of like, they don't really get out of that. I mean, you got the cowboy hats and the boots and the really thick Texas twang and all that stuff. And then come to find out, oh, okay, well, you're for, the workers owning the means of production. Okay, cool. Well, that did not expect that from you.
There's a lot of that. And maybe some of those people don't turn out to vote as much because they're discouraged that their vote won't count.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that because a lot of the population of Texas lives in the cities.
Right.
Most of it does. And there are a lot of people that you would meet like that. And like the city of Houston, Republicans hold their conventions there, but 1 out of every 5 people in Houston is of a different ethnicity. So Texas, I would disagree with you that Texas, like when you get right down to it, it is a conservative state. It's a mixed state.
I agree completely. There's also this misunderstanding, and there's an assumption that Texas is and has always been incredibly far right? And historically speaking, I mean, if you look back, I mean, LBJ was from Texas. He was a Dixiecrat who was, well known, well loved, well appreciated here in Texas. And that simply wasn't that long ago when we think about in the span of history. In 1995, Ann Richards, a Democratic woman, was our governor. I think that probably the greatest lie or greatest story that has been told by the Republican Party is that Texas is this conservative far-right bastion, and that that your vote doesn't matter if you're progressive. There is a lot of voter discouragement. There is a lot of, oh, well, it doesn't matter if I show up because my 5 neighbors are all going to vote for Trump or Cruz or whoever, when in reality, your vote matters more in Texas than almost any other state on the ballot right now.
Yeah, we could, all of us, if all the progressive voters and even the liberal voters and independents, moderate independents were to join with us, we could give all the electoral votes of Texas to Kamala Harris tomorrow, but a lot of voters are discouraged.
When Beto ran against Cruz, that was another drama-packed race because Beto took the lead early and kept the lead right until the last 5 minutes of the thing.
Yeah,
that was so hugely frustrating. I had to think about this. So many votes were being cast. So many people in line at the voting booths and everything, the voting areas. And I mean, just wrapped around the building and all that. And the shitty thing was, as I could tell as I'm walking along the line, that most of them were there to vote for Ted Cruz. Think about that. There are people voting for Ted Cruz.
Could be me.
I've seen yard signs. I don't get it.
Yeah.
The fucked appeal does he have to anybody? His own family doesn't like him.
Nobody likes him. His party doesn't like him.
Yeah.
I've that infamous quote about someone could go shoot him in the middle of the Senate floor, and that person would never get convicted.
Right.
I remember Al Franken said, "I like Ted Cruz more than most Republicans like
Mhm.
Ted Cruz, and I hate Ted Cruz.
Mhm.
Right.
This may be the same person, but that someone put our real Texans in the city. Not really. I'm not going to say that. I think Texas is a very diverse country. It used to be a country, its own country.
It used to be, yeah.
It's a very diverse state, and we used to have an ad campaign that it's a whole other country.
Right.
And so, like, there is East Texas outside of the cities, and other places in Texas as well that are very Texas, but the cities are also very Texas. San Antonio, Riverwalk,
Yeah, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, El Paso, Houston.
To quote a country song, that's something like, I can sing it to you and we can all do that old San Antonio stroll.
Yeah.
Like, our cities are part of Texas, and I as somebody who's Vietnamese American who grew up in Houston Houston has like it's in the top 5 populations of Vietnamese people in the country. So Texas is always, and I'm half white, so I grew up in Spring, Texas too, in a smaller town. Texas isn't one base. Texas is a very diverse state.
It is. And, that kind of comes back to what I was saying about the complexity of a lot of people outside of Texas thinking that we are 100% absolutely far right, not worth saving. And it's just much more complex than that. Like, it's not that Texas is or is not firmly conservative. It's that there are a lot of people here, and we do have an incredibly diverse population. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is home to one of the largest Korean populations in the United States. There are so many people and so many different cultures and different ideas, and it is truly unlike anywhere else I've been. And I've been to a lot of cities. I've been to multiple countries, but Texas is Texas, and it is much more unique and much more nuanced than I think a lot of people realize.
You walk around Houston, like I said before, and 1 out of every 5 people is got a different ethnic base. So, and that's where most Texans live, is in the cities.
Yeah,
so you can't count us out.
My wife grew up in Houston, so she would take me to the neighborhoods that her family frequents, and there's whole like I don't know, like it looks to me like neighborhoods, whole shopping centers and everything that are you would forget that you're in Texas. This is like a little Vietnam kind of thing. And we have places like that in Dallas too, just not quite as big as what Houston has. Somebody in the chat asked me, Aaron Raw, what did you think about Trump on Joe Rogan's podcast? I have never seen a Joe Rogan podcast. I watched 10 or 15 minutes of his interview with Tucker Carlson only because it was bewilderingly stupid. And I already knew that before I watched it. Otherwise, I've seen clips of maybe 2 or 3 minutes of this or that Joe Rogan thing a couple of times. Very rarely. I don't watch Joe Rogan.
I saw the highlights. You're smarter for not having viewed that.
Well, thank you. And then somebody in the chat says, "Go Trump." Tomorrow, we're all hoping to be able to say that, aren't we? Go back to Mar-a-Lago, go to prison. Yeah, go Trump. We're done with you.
Right.
Go to Russia. He even speculated on that maybe Putin would welcome him once.
If he loses, he's not going to have that option for power anymore. So, although he does have those national secrets that are somewhere in that just dementia-addled brain.
I'm tired of talking about him. I'm tired of the drama all the time. I'm tired of the pass that he gets from the media, where he gets them views and clicks, and they're not very critical of him. I mean, this is not normal.
I want to address,
nor should it be.
I often hear, when people say that both parties are the same, that it cuts both ways or whatever, as if it's two sides of the same coin and all that. Kamala, like all Democrats, the last 50 years, understand, well, even since Jimmy Carter, they understand They are going to be rated by numbers. So we're going to be producing numbers to evaluate their performances. But when your opinion is that you could just go out and shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose any voters, then clearly you are not being rated on your performance.
No. And I've actually
Somebody
talked to people
summarized
about
that as he gets to be lawless, she has to be flawless.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I've literally brought that up to people, and they said, no, that wouldn't lose my vote. He's absolutely right. He would not lose a vote, which is disgusting.
I also think it's very telling that here's the thing. I think as a person who is going to vote Democratic, though I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a Democrat, I think that we should be critical and we should be pushing our politicians to work harder for us. So sure, I may not agree 100% with Kamala Harris, but am I going to vote for the Harris-Walz campaign? Absolutely, because that is the campaign where I can see change and make change and push, whereas the other campaign wants to literally, if possible, strip even more rights away from many, many, many Americans.
I want to know if there's anybody, any of us, and that includes the people in the chat, is there anybody that any of us ever agreed with everything they said?
No.
No?
I disagree with
There's
Arnold.
no politician.
Not to put too fine a point on this, but we're talking right now. We live in Garland, Texas, which is in Dallas County, so it is kind of like suburban, urban, but we're talking to people in Weatherford, Texas, so it's not a city versus country thing with Texas, and I feel like the Trump campaign is dividing us between. I don't. It's weird to come out and say it, but white people, immigrants, and the weird thing is, Trump's wife is a ethnically white immigrant. You know?
And
Yeah.
JD Vance's his wife's parents were immigrants.
And
It's so weird that they are so against, and they aren't even white, right? So I'm like,
his wife
okay.
is Hindi. I mean,
Yeah.
not Indian American.
I don't get why they're so against, and he's against chain migration, which his wife did for her family. Like, I don't get it. They are. It's that thing that you hear all the time. It's every accusation is a confession, right?
Right. Well, also they've very much become the party of do as I say, not as I do. Which is something I think that we all grew up hearing. And I don't know about you, but I never liked hearing that. It's just not something I'm interested in.
We were on a train in Scotland, and we were listening to some of the locals talk about American news, how there was a senator who was very much against abortion until his mistress got pregnant, and then he's trying to force his mistress to have an abortion so that his wife won't find out. And of course, the world finds out, and the Scots are all laughing at this so hard. I'm afraid to say anything to anybody because I don't want my accent to be recognized.
Well, when I go to Europe, it's been a while, but the last time I went was dead center in the middle of Trump's presidency, and I would just go to bars at night. I do all my touristy stuff during the day, and I go to bars at night and in pubs and just meet people and talk and hang out. And to a T, every single person was like, "Why? Why Trump?" I'm like, I promise you, we're not all like that. We actually more people voted for Clinton than Trump, even though she was not a good candidate. But
let's talk about moving forward then. Let's imagine, and let's just talk about either way that this happens, right? Let's say Trump gets elected tomorrow as one of the two hypotheticals. What do we do?
We continue to be active in our communities and support one another on a mutual level. We continue to organize. We continue to do our best not to lose hope, because I think that's what they want. They want us to get into a place where we're so downtrodden that we aren't willing to take action and continue to community organize.
Yeah, we'd be up against some daunting opposition. It would be. I feel like the way that Project 2025 is laid out, I, as an atheist activist, and my job is basically defending the First Amendment. There won't be a First Amendment. Just literally straight out. Donald Trump has done everything he can to undermine every provision of the First Amendment. All of it.
Yeah, right down to the libel laws.
Videos about this. I've written essays about everything he's done for every provision of the First Amendment. He wants it out, and then he says that he's going to trump the Constitution. He's going to do what Putin did. He's going to rewrite the Constitution. The Supreme Court has now given him permission to do whatever the fuck he wants to, as long as it's an administrative act. You go ahead. You have fun.
Right. Well, and I
think unless it's a Democrat doing that.
Right.
Right. No, and just the other day, I read something that I thought was quite poignant about Donald Trump telling us exactly what he intends to do, and yet people are not concerned about that. The same people are concerned and saying that the Democratic Party will destroy the Constitution. Well, he's literally given us this plan, concepts of a plan. I apologize. And I think that when people say things to you, we need to listen to them, believe them. It's very startling to see these same people who theoretically want to defend freedoms, and they say they're constitutionalists. And I'm like, have you ever taken a con law class? I don't think you have.
I want to thank Delectation of Tomatoes. Thank you both for then and now. They said they voted for me in 2020. As a write-in, and then they voted for
let's say, did you make it to the ballot? I remember you running, but I thought you dropped out.
Yeah, and it wasn't for president anyway.
Right.
Yeah, although in 2020, that is when I ran, isn't it? Anyway, no, it isn't. No, it was 2016. I'm getting old.
Back to the topic itself, y'all were saying that you run across a lot of Trump supporters where you live, and they're very difficult to reason with. Like, do you even try anymore?
For me, if it's someone that I know, someone that I'm actually friends with, and I think they can keep a level head, I will try. Most of my family, I don't even try. I just know that's not going to happen. But random people that I interact with pretty regularly, I do. Like the guy I talked about earlier, whenever he's like, "Oh, you think the left are the Nazis?" Okay, that's interesting. And but like in that same place, I met someone who said he met his best friend at Turning Point USA. I'm like, nope, not even going to talk to this guy. That is the cult right there.
It's really discouraging, and like that.
But he moved here from California, so
there are Trumpers in California, in the rural areas of California.
Yeah.
Someone named Fatherhood Uncensored said they're not against immigrants; they're against illegally entering the country. However, their issues with the Haitians in Springfield is an example that they are against immigrants who are there legally.
They are there legally, 100%. Yeah. J.D. Vance actually came out and said,
"No,
Kamala did this, and I don't agree with how she did it," which I don't think she did that because she's vice president. What the fuck is she going to do? So he blamed her. He's like, "But I don't consider them legal, so get them out." And that's going to be an excuse for anyone who can even be used.
Look at the problems that Obama had just for having a name that sounded ethnic.
Oh, you mean Barack Hussein Obama?
Yeah, he wasn't born here. Where's his birth certificate? And Trump repeated that stuff. So yes, they do have a problem with legal immigrants as well.
They do, absolutely.
Before Trump became politically active, he tried to take over a bunch of Native American casinos.
Mm-hmm. He said they don't look Indian to me.
Yeah. What kind of excuse is that? Well, they don't look Indian to me.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck does that mean?
You don't get any more legal than the original inhabitants of the continent.
Yeah, we are the immigrants, or at least our ancestors.
If they weren't wearing feathers, how would he know?
Yeah. Yeah, I was on a Facebook thing the other day, and this guy actually said, "Show me where Trump's been racist." I was like, I don't have enough time to type this out. It's just, he literally was talking to a black person. He goes, "Oh, he's one of the smart ones." That was like 3 weeks ago.
And
he goes, "Some of them are not so good, but he's one of the smart ones." I'm like, how is that not? How does he get a pass on this stuff?
Right. No, it's shocking to see these repeat actions that are, honestly, there are so many of them that I don't think any of us could bring up citations for every instance of racism or misogyny or absolute off the wall incorrect facts, right?
On that topic, I think if you brought up as many as you could think of, they would make up an excuse for everyone. Like I was just saying how they aren't very nice to immigrants. Oh no, it's just the illegal ones. No, that's not true either. And there's just always this rationalization going on.
Yeah, well, the people that our esteemed governor shipped over to Martha's Vineyard, they were here on asylum. They had actual scheduled meetings with ICE that they had to cancel because they tricked them into getting on a bus and going up to Martha's Vineyard. They were here legally, but they said, no, these are the illegal immigrants. No, they're not. But it doesn't matter to them what their status is. It's not so much that they're illegal; it's they're unwanted in their eyes.
Right.
And if you said to them that Trump accused them of polluting the blood, how are they polluting blood?
Well, they have there's the whole white
that's not
replacement.
racist, right?
Yeah, there's the whole white replacement theory. That's I think it's what it's called. That these people believe. I watch a lot of these YouTube channels that do the interviews at the Trump rallies, and these people actually genuinely believe this stuff. I'm like, hey, I don't care. I don't care what race we have as long as it's naturally going away. But why do you? I don't get it. I just don't get it. There are things that don't resonate with me, I guess.
I don't get the most why they keep asking you or saying how is Trump racist when he's demonstrated he's racist from the beginning, like very, very overtly in ways that someone like David Duke would be afraid to say. And he was a former Grand Wizard of the KKK.
David Duke endorsed Trump, and Trump didn't immediately denounce that. He was like, oh, I don't know. I got to see what he's about. It's like, he's the leader of the KKK, dude. What else do you need to know?
And I couldn't see him while he was a politician saying something like they're polluting the blood, out loud on camera.
Yeah.
So, well, we know that his dad, Trump's dad, was arrested at KKK rally, back in the day, 25, 30, something like that. And then, of course, his father also refused to rent to black people, and people
they put a little C on their name on the applications.
Yeah, and Trump had reportedly, just frequently or casually used the N-word until, much like a mafia boss, he started getting careful about what he says on recordings, or he should have, although he was still getting away with the pussy grabbing chain.
Yeah, I don't think he knew it was being recorded at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's gotten a little bit more careful. Well, not much.
Right.
No, he said in a speech, literally, I think yesterday, he said he was, or maybe it was a week ago, but he was talking about the rocket that Elon Musk just landed. He's like, yeah, and it just reached out and grabbed him like you would your child. Before I probably wouldn't have said your child, but I gotta clean it up now. It's like, dude.
Yeah. Tell us more about Arnold Palmer's dick. Tell the boys.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. Everyone wants to hear about that.
Right.
Tell the Boy Scouts about the orgies on the yacht.
Mm.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is what we would do if Trump wins. We're gonna hunker down. There's no way to escape to Canada or whatever. We've got to fight an even stronger battle to try to get our First Amendment, try to protect the Constitution against the people who think they're constitutionalists, which is an irony. I've often been accused of being a left-wing fascist by people who obviously don't understand that fascism is right-wing by definition.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what's her name from the Young Turks just came out and was like, why are you calling him fascist? He hasn't even succeeded in any of the fascist shit he's tried to do. It's like, Anna Kasparian, that's her name.
He hasn't succeeded in any of the fascist shit he tried to do.
That is basically her argument. Like, he hasn't even succeeded, so why are you calling him a fascist? Like,
very
I didn't realize you had to be successful to be a fascist.
No, he has succeeded at some things. Like that's. I feel like that's part of the reason why Trump wins is because people underestimate him that are maybe moderate or even on the left, and they make a joke about it. And the more they joke about it, the more attention he gets, and the more people underestimate him.
Right. I mean, in his presidency, not only did he, of course, stack the Supreme Court, but also hundreds of additional federal courts were now have judges that were placed by Donald Trump, which will have an absolutely irreparable effect on the long-term legal precedent set in the United States.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of time for that kind of privileged mindset that you don't see what he did to the Supreme Court.
And if he gets back in, it's going to be
At least
Clarence
two more
Thomas
justices.
and was it Scalia? They're going to retire, and then he's going to put in someone who's like 35, 40 years old who will be in there for 40 more years.
Yeah. Yep. So let's say then that Kamala wins tomorrow, and hopefully our justice system will have greased its wheels enough by then that maybe by 2028 Trump will finally be facing charges for something. That would be nice.
Sentencing soon.
Yeah, but so what would we do if Kamala wins? Do we just sit back and say, "Okay, we've won and we're done"?
No, because I don't like Kamala that much. I actually voted. My goal was in 2020 in the primaries not to have Kamala, not to have Biden, and not to have Bloomberg, which I didn't think Bloomberg had a chance in hell anyway. So of course I got two of the three that I didn't want. But those were my goals. I did not like any of those people. I think one of my big things is prison reform, and I think she's horrible on that. So I wasn't a big fan, although take her over Trump any day. But yeah, so there's a lot she needs to do. She needs to face the Gaza thing head on immediately. And if she doesn't, that's what it is though. After she gets elected, let's focus on policy and the things we don't like. But until then, it's get her elected.
Right. Well, and I think that the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is that if Donald Trump is elected, as you've said, Aaron, the First Amendment goes by the wayside, where if Kamala Harris is elected, she will protect your right to that free speech. She will protect that that right that you have, as opposed to trying to diminish it and essentially become some sort of dictator or ruler or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to, speculate necessarily, but what I can say is that Donald Trump's been very clear about, if you vote for me, you won't have to worry about voting again, right? When it comes to the Constitution and protecting our rights, Kamala Harris has been upfront about that. Now, do I love Kamala Harris? No, I don't know her. I've never met her. But, there are things that I think that we could push much further left, prison reform being a huge, huge example. Of course, the genocide in Gaza is completely unacceptable, and continued U.S. involvement is unacceptable, including the, 30-year relationship that we have with Benjamin Netanyahu, which unfortunately is something that has continued to carry over president to president. But unfortunately, I don't think that we have the opportunity to push our politicians further left until they are in office and we are protected in a way that allows us to do that pushing and to do that work.
Now, I'll say that Biden did better than I thought he would. I was expecting Biden to disappoint me more than he did sooner than he did. He actually did a lot better than I expected, but I didn't want Biden either. I would have been delighted with Warren, and I particularly wanted Bernie.
Yep, same.
Agreed.
But nobody's perfect, not even either of them.
No.
And so the thing is I feel like if we win the day tomorrow, then I have to go to work more than I ever have, because one, I'm tired of every election being worse than the last election. Until it becomes, do we want to do business as usual, or do we want to do existential crisis?
Yeah. Every election, the last 3 elections, have been the most important election of my life, as far as
live or die. That's
and every year it's right.
Yeah. I want next election cycle, I want it to be about analyzing which policies do I like better, not have the leopard eat my face.
Yeah. Well, yes. I think that's what I keep seeing, and I'm watching a lot of The Line right now because I really appreciate the political slant they're taking, and they're talking to third-party voters and non-voters and this kind of thing. I'm like, no, I want it to be a Democrat landslide, because 10 years ago, the Republican Party wasn't this insane. I mean, they're like comically insane almost at this point. I mean, it's scary still, but it's just how far they've gone is so stupid. And I think that if they start seeing, I mean, I know Trump says they're going to be tired of winning at some point, but I think once they finally realize that, oh no, 70% of the people voted Democrat in this one because you guys have fucked up so bad, maybe we can return some sanity even to the other side to where it won't be such a big deal to maybe even compromise. Now, I think anyone who's currently in there needs to go. Like, if you bent the knee, then you need to go, period. But
yeah, I have to wonder how it is that people voted for Ted Cruz. People voted for Abbott over Wendy Davis. And when we were canvassing for her, the people were closing their doors in my face, but saying, "Oh, you're here for abortion Barbie."
Mm-hmm.
That was her nickname.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't understand how people reelected Lauren Boebert twice.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck? These people are so embarrassingly stupid.
Mm-hmm. I currently reside in Tarrant County, and I was looking at my sample ballot the other day, and there are multiple judgeships that are on the line that are completely unopposed, where we have incumbent Republicans running completely unopposed. So, I do think one of the most important things that we can do to continue to make change, regardless of who wins the election tomorrow, is really emphasizing to people how important it is to A, be active in your local community, and B, run for office. If you want to see changes, go make them,
I tried it once. I'm not going to do it again because I'm no good at begging for money. And that is, unfortunately, in our political situation, that's what it is. And so that's one of the things I would like to see changed, and that I would certainly work with anybody that can propose something that might work on this. When I ran for my little district in the Texas State Senate, I was told that in a normal election cycle, I would need $35,000 to begin my campaign. To begin. And then if I were running for a similar office in the UK, the law is that I would be capped at 35,000 pounds. So I just thought it was interesting that in the UK, you can only go this far, and that's where you have to begin in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So that therein lies, I think, the crux of the problem. And so our politicians are just constantly begging for money.
Oh, yeah. There's an old YouTube video that I share all the time, and it's this guy who's a pretend candidate, and he's like, education, housing, these are the things I care about. But the things my donors care about are banks and this and this. So in order for me to be able to run for these things, I have to do these things. And that's exactly spot on. Like, I told a friend of mine who was running for a Texas State position, I was like, dude, I showed him that video, and he came back after he was done. And he's like, that was absolutely right. You can't run on what you want to run on. You got to run on what your donors want you to run on, because otherwise you can't run.
Well, and I think that all of us can probably agree that Citizens United was probably, well, not probably, but definitively one of the most extreme and most damning things to happen in our political process in the United States. The ruling in Citizens United completely changed the landscape of politics, which was already messy and muddy to begin with.
Yeah. So give me some suggestions. What do you guys intend to do? Supposing that Kamala wins tomorrow, because I have the feeling that none of us here in this conversation are just passerby and just going to let the political world happen and see what happens and see how it affects us. We want to be involved in changing shit. And one of the things I'd like to do is instill ranked voting, because I'm sick of the duopoly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ranked
People
voting.
don't understand. When I say that a vote for Stein is a vote for Trump, they don't understand what that means, because they don't get how the disparity of the duopoly works in this case.
No, and you know what? If it's a nothing election, whatever, sure, vote your conscience. But this is not a nothing election.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jill Stein should not get a single vote this election, period. Except for maybe her and her husband. They should get two.
I actually just read earlier today that European Green parties are currently calling for Jill Stein to step down and endorse
16 different countries. Yeah. Because, hey, the United States affects the whole world. Guess what?
The entire world.
Yeah, so Jill Stein bills herself as a progressive, but she's having dinner with Putin
Putin, yeah.
and has private conversations with Putin, just like Musk and Trump.
Mhm.
How much of our government and our aristocracy or whatever are in Putin's pocket at this point?
I don't want to know. Well, actually, I do want to know, but yeah, it's more than I think any one of us would really care to know.
Wouldn't it be great to know what the content of these conversations were? I mean, remember all the secret conversations that Trump had with Putin in various places where no one's taking notes, where the translators all have an NDA, and
Helsinki
have gone to, like, Trump collects them himself, so he has to have a translator there, but everybody's like sworn to secrecy and so on, and nobody knows what the hell was said there, and no one ever will.
Nope, that's complete nonsense. That should never ever happen. I get that we need to have national secrets and whatnot, but when you come out and say, "Oh, the 14 reports that say Russia interfered with our election," I don't believe those because I just talked to Putin and he said he didn't. So why don't we just believe him?
Yeah,
which is exactly what happened in Helsinki.
Why would I trust my own experts when I have the liar right here?
He says nice things about me, and that's all that really matters to Trump. Do you say nice things about me? Do you call me pretty?
So going forward, what do any of you plan to do? Let's say Kamala wins. What are we doing?
So for me personally, if Kamala Harris win, because I'm going to manifest that, right? So when Kamala Harris wins the election, my plan is, of course, like I said, to continue to engage on a local level. Statistically, we make significant change in our own backyard if we continue to do those things. In addition to that, I think it's really important to, again, reach out to those that represent us, whether you voted for them or not, and demand change. So engaging with, whether it's a letter writing campaign, and I know a lot of people think that these things don't make change, but, we only have so many options, so you might as well try. Doing nothing is not doing anything, if you catch my drift. In addition to that, when Kamala Harris becomes president, that allows those of us who are consistently fighting, not just for progressive and left policies, hoping to be somewhere left of center someday, it gives us the opportunity to actually focus on those things instead of, being in active fear for our livelihood, for our lives, for our future, for our rights, because those things are more protected under the Harris-Walz presidency.
Okay, I want to join with everybody else in applying pressure on the Gaza thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realize what an issue that is, in that Biden and Kamala are both afraid to touch it because we know how divisive any solution is on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of built into the whole thing when the state was created back in, what was it, 44 or whenever it was.
Yeah.
For me, I would Kamala seems like she is a consensus builder before she moves on something, and she needs to move quicker and show some initiative and some vision to pressure Netanyahu to come to the table for a ceasefire. Biden had been chasing him the whole time since that happened, and he's only a month before the election saying that Netanyahu doesn't seem to be negotiating in good faith, and it's like, no shit, right? That he doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants Gaza, and so I would move quickly. Don't like tell us when you're running again for president that you've been trying to solve this problem. But I just get really tired when Democrats do that, where they wring their hands, where they say they can't. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Judge, go to the other side and say, hey, if I start shipping less bombs, will you agree to release the hostages? And to get those hostages released, and then Netanyahu doesn't have them as a reason to keep bombing the shit out of kids and elderly people. And
I see a difference, a major difference between us here is we are concerned collectively on the left or the Democrats, whichever way you want to categorize that. We are concerned with like other people's situations and how to make other people's situations better. Whereas our opposition seems to be 99% of them are outraged that 1% wants us to use pronouns.
Yeah.
That's their biggest issue. How
Someone-
dare you have a right to freedom of happiness?
Someone
Or
asked
pursuit
the
of happiness.
question. Sorry about this. Why would you expect a sworn ally to have a ceasefire against a terrorist organization? Well, the terms of the ceasefire were that the head of Hamas was to step down, etc. And not everybody in Palestine is a terrorist. So you don't get to
Certainly
bomb
not the kids.
shit out of little
Yeah,
kids.
those 16,000 dead kids, they definitely weren't terrorists.
Yeah, but that's a good way to create terrorists.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, bomb a bunch of kids while they're in line for a food truck
Or in a
Or-
hospital.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it, and to have our name
on
stamped
the
on.
bombs.
Mhm. And Nikki Haley's signature on one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just no. And the other thing that she needs to do with a quickness and not wait and use it as a campaign plank is she needs to. They keep saying codify Roe versus Wade. That's not acceptable because then, in order to do that, you would need a majority in Congress and in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and using that as a campaign issue to flip Congress is not acceptable because people are dying and people that have been raped, like in Texas, over 100,000 people are forced to give birth to their rapist babies. But we don't have time to wait for y'all to campaign on this. It needs to happen right now. Not if Congress isn't going to pass it quickly, that you need to reform the Supreme Court right now.
Yeah, and I'm down with that. What would you like to do? So you want to impose term limits, and so that would get rid of a couple of them right away. You want to expand to what is it from 9 to 13, something like that, 15 maybe.
Any expansion would help. They wouldn't have a super majority like
What
they do right now.
What I've heard is Biden said he might use the rest of his term to reform the Supreme Court, so he might be waiting for out the election. I hope so. Is that he would term limit the Supreme Court, and that would take off 2 of the conservative judges who are past that term,
Right.
Clarence Thomas and
Samuel Alito.
Alito. I said
One of
I
the
guess
things
it's
that-
earlier, but
One of the things that frustrates me, and when I do my show on the Blasphemers Bible, we have this guy that does a lot of the commentary from all the rabbinical scholars and everything. His name is Tomer. And Tomer expressed to me that his frustration with the whole Gaza thing, with the whole political scheme worldwide, is that the solutions are so obvious and everybody is stupid. Everybody on every side is stupid. And I feel him. Because you can say, well, this is what Biden could do, this is what Kamala can do, and at the same time we're saying, but this isn't fast enough, this isn't efficient enough. We know what the solutions are. Why the fuck isn't anybody doing it? Why did the Department of Justice wait this fucking long? Delay, so that we can't even sentence the guy. Why is he still a viable candidate? Because we took so fucking long.
I get how the wheels of justice turn slowly and all that, cliche stuff, but we don't have this kind of time and then get to have it just become another election cycle over and over again. It needs to stop.
Yeah. All right. So we are almost at an hour, and I said that we would be talking for an hour. If you guys have anything else you want to share, please dump it out there now.
I don't think I have anything on top of what we've already talked about necessarily.
Okay.
Just always encouraging people to get out there and vote. I understand that that's step 1 in a very lengthy process, but it's an important step 1.
And I do like the thing about running for office, because you just think about it. If you're listening to this, think about whether you could run for office.
You can.
I've known a lot of people who just up and surprised me and did that. I have a friend who is currently sitting on the city council
Hmm.
in one of the Dallas metroplexes.
Yeah, I mean, school board elections, city council positions, even serving as a citizen. You can often join city councils. What are the? I'm so sorry, guys. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, as a citizen, you're actually often given the opportunity to essentially serve as like an advisor to the city council on specific projects. There are opportunities all the time for us to engage in our local government that are deeply impactful. And it's very important to pay attention to those.
All right.
If Kamala wins tomorrow, I would hope that everybody who is independent and Democrat, liberal, progressive would join to pressure her about Gaza and the abortion issue. And if Trump, there's others too, like Colt was saying, prison reform, criminal justice reform, pardon. And also, she is pro legalizing marijuana, and that would solve a lot of problems there.
I don't even smoke dope myself. Marijuana could be legal everywhere in the country, and I still wouldn't imbibe. But I see that is a really good idea.
Yeah,
if you want to win the war against drugs, give up, take over the revenue, have it federally regulated, so that now you can complain about the quality of your weed, whether it was up to what you paid for.
Well, I mean, you can get what's it called, Delta 9 and stuff right now. Anyway, I mean, it's so close. Anyway, we're like, at this point, it's just
give up.
I'll put it this way: if Oklahoma is more progressive than us in something, then we're doing something wrong. You can go to Oklahoma and they're just all about it. Here's a doctor's note: go wild.
Yeah, I remember we used to make fun of Ireland and Mexico for being behind us and so on, but we can't say that anymore.
No.
Ireland and Mexico have shown that they're more progressive than we are, and we just have to hang our head in shame now.
Yeah, Ireland just recently codified access to abortion. So over the last 4 or 5 years. So
I didn't know that. For a travel country, that's pretty good.
Tomorrow, Arn and me are going to live stream the election results, and we'll have the person with us that we were live streaming with in 2016 when we got kind of sucker punched with Trump winning, and we won't be sucker punched this time, because it won't really surprise me or shock me if he wins, because it's so close and there's so much apathy and stuff like that going on. But we'll just commiserate maybe that first day if he wins. And I see a lot of comments that I can't wait to see him win, so see the look on y'all's face and stuff. And
yeah,
that's not the way we think about you. Yeah. If Kamala wins, we don't think we want to see you so unhappy. What we think is we want to fight for you to have better access to health care and things like that. So like it's not the same vibe. And also if Trump wins, everybody who's got some kind of shred of decency should be part of the resistance.
I feel there's kind of a bit of a curiosity that if Trump wins, I kind of want to run the experiment. I wish I had both timelines so we can compare. You get your Trump victory. How long before you realize what a horrible mistake that was? Because that man is a disaster. He knows nothing. And the people who know him best know that. There was a Jeffrey Epstein interview that I watched today, or listened to because it was audio recording, where Epstein says that Trump knows real estate very well, but he knows nothing else.
Yeah, I listened to that tape today too.
Yeah. And Trump, he said that Trump was very charming. He would get you to he would charm you in order to then do terrible things to you.
Oh yeah, get you to admit that you were cheating on your wife while your wife was on speakerphone with him, so that then he could go sleep with the wife. because she wanted to get revenge on the husband that was cheating on her. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
He's a real good guy, though. Real good Christian,
Epstein said that Trump was a horrible person.
Yeah, I saw that too.
This was
Right.
I want to say that again. Epstein said that Trump was a horrible person. And by the way, Trump is on Epstein's flight manifest 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the original topic. If Kamala wins, we'll be fighting for your rights too, to get a safe, legal abortion, legal marijuana, whether you voted for Kamala or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pricing reform and healthcare. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, we'll be there for you. What are you going to do for us?
I know how frustrated everybody's going to be tomorrow, so I'm glad that Lilandra brought up that we will be doing this live stream. I'm considering maybe, taking some people from the chat periodically, like give you a few minutes to talk to us directly, not in text, because sometimes we're going to want to be able to talk to each other more realistically. So maybe we can work that out. I don't know, but I know we're all going to be we're all going to be tense. It's going to be a race, and
I don't think we're going to know tomorrow, personally.
That's true.
Yeah. Everybody's telling us that we're not going to know.
Right.
But I'm hoping that we actually will. Because
that'd be nice.
Yeah, I've seen a number of surprises, election after election. That almost all of them we know. It might be 2:00 in the morning, but we already knew when we went to bed which way this was going to go.
Sure.
Yeah, they're going to count and recount Pennsylvania because I don't think either side can win without it, unless Trump gets all the Sunbelt swing states. I forget what else he has to get on top of that. Maybe one of the Rust Belt states. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of those that are going to be so close. They're going to be counting and recounting. So I have to wake up early in the morning for work. So I wish it would be over and done with too. I'd rather not sleep with the anxiety of it. But and I in a way, I'll be glad the anxiety's over.
Right.
Yeah, I want to mention, somebody mentioned in the chat that I'm here tonight with my political advisor. I'm sure that was referring to you, Lilandra, because I've told people that there was a time when I didn't know hardly anything. I was like most Americans, I think, who didn't really know or it was interested in politics. And because of my relationship to my wife, I've now since found myself holding picket signs on the state capitol a number of times. Just that kind of life now. So thank you for that, dear.
Yeah, you just can't allow evangelicals and right-wing nuts like Trump to make your laws for you. There's no workaround for it.
All right, Colt, Erin, thank you for being on. When we had this conversation at your brewery, I thought that this would be really good. I like talking to people who seem to know something. So that's always encouraging. A lot of people I run into just don't. And the Trump supporters that I talk to it's worse than not knowing anything. It's knowing things that are not real.
Right.
Yeah. So like hearing about how the Democrats invited all these immigrants and gave them hotel rooms so that they could give them voter registrations to have them vote.
Oh my God.
As if that happened. As if 181 countries emptied their prisons and their insane asylums to send people to this country. People believe this.
I have one more thing to say about immigration, because that is a top 1 or 2 vote getter on the Republican side, and there's a significant number of Democrats who are concerned about immigration, and there's a lot of disinformation out there, and they somehow they equate immigration with higher crime, but there is like the drug trade across the border. That's true, but the immigrants who are here, they commit less crimes than citizens. And I think I live in Dallas, Texas. I don't live on the border, but I live close to the border. And I'm not super worried about anybody from Mexico crossing over and doing anything.
But I heard that they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Yeah.
But some of them are good people, I assume.
Here's another one we've heard about how Democrats want to have post-birth abortions.
Yeah, that one was a fun one that I don't even know where that he keeps saying something about Virginia.
I know where that came from.
You do?
Yeah. So there was a set of conjoined twins, and obviously a difficult birth. They're conjoined twins. Imagine what they're going through with that. But then they start working out the way that these two exist, and they realize that as they grow, this one is going to become more and more parasitic, doesn't have any independent means. And as they grow, this one is going to take up so much of this one's resources that they will both die. There is no circumstance in which this one is going to live, ever. But if we do a surgical separation, killing this one can live. But if we don't do this, they will both die. And somebody was complaining that there's no way that a doctor can make a determination like this, or even suggest that they're just going to have to let both of them die, because there's no legal way to even discuss this.
Right.
That is what they were talking about. That's what started the thing about wanting to do post-birth abortions, which is not a post-birth abortion at all.
No.
There's just a case we'd made, and that was in the video that Arn just posted yesterday, of someone who had a miscarriage at 6 months into her pregnancy. She wanted the baby, and she went to 3 hospital emergency rooms, and she was turned away. And because they're the doctors here are so afraid of breaking Texas's abortion laws that that they could get like 100 years criminal prison sentence maximum, and that's why they kept turning her away, and she died. And both of them died. Right. So it's like that twin thing. One of them has to die for except both of them are going to die if one of them doesn't die. Now, who would you pick?
The only legal way is for both of them to die. It's illegal for one of them to live. That's the way that it's set up.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the case that you're speaking about is Nevaeh Crane, who was 18 years old. She was barely technically an adult, right? Which I understand 18 is an adult, but like I really think we should frame it from the context of this is somebody who is essentially the same age as your high school senior, who's having to make these horrifically difficult decisions, who lost her life due to sepsis because after seeking help, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, she was denied help because that our state is so restrictive.
And it's not just her, because the comments on the video is like this, you cherry picked this one case. The maternal mortality went up from nationwide, it's 11%, but after the stricter abortion ban, it went up over 50% in Texas. Like not to 50%, but the rate went up over 50%.
But Trump told us that elementary schools will take your children and change their sex or change their gender surgically and send them back as the opposite.
Yes, elementary schools
underfunded. How many times must that have happened already before Trump found out about it?
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous thing I've heard. You can't even get a Tylenol in a school nurse's station. They're not going to be performing surgery without parental consent. But people believe it.
Trump supporters believe that shit, and they get angry when we call them stupid.
And my apologies, but apparently my power cable had a fray in it, so it wasn't actually charging my laptop.
Yeah, I get you. So you guys have been really great. Thank you for being on. I hope everybody tunes in tomorrow for our hangout on the election. It's going to be maddening. I intend to practice alcoholism until all this is over with.
I was on your one in 2020. Or in 2016, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember commenting something like, "This must be what it feels like to be on LSD while having a stroke."
I know. We had like the air sucked out of our lungs, and some people thought that was funny, but for us, it's like, how could this,
Yeah.
how? It was, for me, he's like a king troll. And he gets all that attention for the trolling and the clowning. But, and people keep telling you that the president doesn't do anything. Yes, they do. They appoint federal judges. They nominate Supreme Court justices. I mean,
They take
there's
millions
more-
from
more-
China, from Saudis,
Yeah.
from Turkey, from Russia. Oh no,
Commander
there's
in
only
chief of
one
the
president
military.
who does that.
Egypt.
Any idiot can't do it. We have had idiots besides him, but at least they had the presence of mind to have a better staff.
Which reminds me of my favorite quote from the entire run of Game of Thrones. We've had vicious kings and we've had idiot kings, but I don't think we've had a vicious idiot for a king.
Hmm.
And we're so close to that.
Yeah, we're there. Especially with that last Supreme Court ruling on the we mentioned earlier.
All right, I'm going to have to close this and let you go. Thank you for being on. Hope a lot of you can tune in tomorrow. I know this is going to be maddening for a bunch of us. We're gonna want some human interaction if at all possible. So, till then, good night, all.
Yep, thanks.
And go vote.
Thanks.